Shalom. Good evening from Israel. Good morning from Melbourne, Australia. And good early evening from the UK. My name is Dr. Tova Goldfein. This is TMS Roundtable Global, since we are all over the continent with our show each Monday night. Rose and I are clinicians for many, many years, lots of years.
Don't mention how many.
Yeah, and we are number 147 this broadcast, which is really kind of continually blows Rose and mine's mind. We have been assisting people in healing from chronic pain and autoimmune disease with TMS insights and ISTTP insights, and we'll continue to reach out to you and educate you on Monday nights and inspire you on Monday nights and help you in our clinic if you need. So Rose, I'm always happy to be hanging out with you on a Monday night. Hi, honey.
Hi, Tova. You know, ladies and gentlemen, today, tonight, this evening, we've got Stephen Blake. Now, Stephen was originally a chronic pain sufferer, but he had some really great insights. And now he's developed a strategy called Old Pain to Go. That's Old Pain to Go. Now, if you think about it, usually old pain, any pain, is related to fear. Now, Stephen is going to speak about this much more in depth. He's going to give us examples. He's going to actually show us that it's possible that you can cure yourself, believe it or not. It's in your hands. And Stephen has a very lovely way of describing the whole process. Now, this isn't being pre-recorded or anything, so it's just go with the flow. Now, Stephen, for a start off, tell us your journey first, how you got here, and then how you developed this program and the outcome of it. Because, you know, actually seeing the fear and recognizing that the fear is not you is just an amazing experience for people. And, you know, he calls it an aha moment, but I would be inclined to call it watching yourself behave in this way and letting it go. But Stephen, welcome to TMS Roundtable. Thank you for being with us and sharing A, your journey, and B, how you got out and how you help others. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity for sharing this with others. So about the age of 8, I had to fetch a 100-weight bag of coal from a mile down the road, and I was given a pushchair to do it in. And that would have been all right if I just pushed it, but the guy stacked it upright. So within the next time I went down a curb, it actually fell onto my arms. This is an 8-year-old. So I pushed 100 weight of coal home, and I daren't leave it because somebody would steal it and then I'd be in trouble. And I've had back pain ever since. And it was quite a while before I remembered that's what caused it. So I knew it was from when I was early, and I'd actually approached a doctor when I was 16 with back problems. So I eventually became a plumber and did building work and bought a house when I was 19 and renovated it. So I worked really hard and physical work, but I always had this underlying back problem. And now and again it would flare up, and sometimes it would get so bad I could barely walk. And by the age of 38, I'd already moved out of the other sort of work by about 10 years and gone into more managerial work and sales and teaching and things like that. And at 38, I was diagnosed with arthritis of the spine and ankylosing spondylitis.
Wow.
And the two of the things the doctor told me, I'd still tell people to this day, which one is that we're not meant to be upright. That's what I was told. Everybody has back problems. We're not meant to be upright. And the other thing was that it's painful, and it will get more and more painful until you die. Which I thought was
what a nice
very nice of them to tell me.
Yeah, very nice.
So from the age of about 20, because I accidentally got into plumbing. So from the age of about 20, I'd always wanted to be a hypnotherapist. In fact, I'd never made this connection before. I'd got a book out of the library on hypnotherapy when I was about 8. which
Oh,
was
wow.
only just down the road from where this coal accident happened. So and I'd never done anything with it, and I'd never learnt anything. I can't remember. I can remember the book cover, but I can't remember anything in it. And so several occasions after the age of 20, I went to train to be a hypnotherapist, and then either I couldn't raise the money, or we then fell pregnant with a baby. So
Were you doing that for your spine, or were you just doing that to help others?
I wanted to help others. I've always had an interest in how the mind works, and I've always had an interest in how everything works. So even as a child, I took all my toys to bits to see what was inside and how it worked.
Did you ever put them back together? Did you ever
back together? No, I can now. I couldn't put them back together because they were the old-fashioned tin things where they fold it over at the bottom, and you unfolded it once and they snapped. So I'd get toys for Christmas, and the next day they'd be behind the garden shed hiding because I'd broken them. but I learned from it.
First trauma you had to lie. You had to lie to your parents.
No, the trauma would have been if my dad had found out.
Yeah.
So at the age, oh God, now I'm trying to work it back now. Because it's February now, so it's 12 years ago, I trained in hypnotherapy and NLP, and got my master's practitioner in NLP. And during the training, they taught us a technique called N-step, or the 6-step reframe. And I wasn't happy when they told us how to do it, because it wasn't just for pain, it was for anything. But if you got rid of anything that was like a symptom, you had to replace it with 3 smaller symptoms that was slightly less annoying. So altogether, it didn't bother you. And I just thought that was ridiculous.
why not get rid of them all?
Yeah, well, my idea was, if you don't need it, throw it away. Well, why would you keep it or have 3? That's like somebody buying you an ornament you don't like, and you tell them to take it back and buy 3 less annoying ornaments. You wouldn't do it. So when we actually did the technique on herself, there was a standing lean in it for an ideomotor response, just proving it's your unconscious, not you. And so when we came to do it, I did it on my pain, because obviously that was the most important thing to me. And when I did it, my pain went away. And so, I mean, I'm 70 in April. So, I mean, I'm quite old, and I've had it since I was 8. So, and this pain went away, and it was bad. I mean, literally, if I got out of a car, I'd be 2 minutes straightening up. It was really bad. So my pain went. So I was blown away by this. And lots of people, there were about 60 people in the room, 40 who tried this. And people turned off smoking and eating chocolate, and all sorts of things was going on. And that night, when we were all out and about, there was a little bit of a buzz about how well it all gone. But the next day, I'm the only one talking about how mine's still working. So I think it was the difference between replacing it with the 3 things or not. And so then I started up a practice of helping people with anxiety. And I never thought of offering them relief from physical pain. It just didn't occur to me. But I did stop people in the street who looked like they'd be in pain. And I'd just say, "Are you in pain?" And they say, "Yeah." And I'd go, I'm really sorry, but I've got this sort of trick. And have you got 10 minutes? And they go, "Yeah, what's it going to cost?" I said, no, I just want to help you. And 10 minutes later, they would walk off without any pain. And I'd be, well, worked again. And the interesting thing is, I never thought it wouldn't work. And that's part of what I teach now, is a lot of it is in our own psyche, that somehow we transmit that to the other person.
Your belief and your belief and your
my enthusiasm,
the desire and your enthusiasm was in, and that we see the relationship between the therapist and the client being very important. So people feel safe with you, they trust you.
Which you have to get if you're going to stop somebody in the street.
That's right.
And I got stuck on a bridge one day, a footbridge back to the car park behind a mother and daughter, and just as I managed to squeeze past, the mother said to the daughter, "I've been in agony for 2 years since the car crash." And I thought, this is divine timing. I'm supposed to hear that. So I stopped her, and she was on crutches and waiting for an operation on the Monday. And I said, have you got 10 minutes? And she went, okay. And I had to convince her I wasn't some strange man. And a daughter left and went to put the things in left her mother with me. But within 10 minutes, I'd find out how I could help her, talked her out of the very thing that was keeping her in the pain, and her pain went. And she wandered off down the road waving her crutches, shouting,
I'm having a hard time believing that.
I know, I've got so many stories, and this is the problem with what I do.
Let's practice. Like, we hear you, so talk some more, but we also really would love to know kind of the tools and the insights. And
so I'll explain how the whole thing works.
Yeah, and again, I don't want people in the audience, in the listeners, to feel like, well, why can't I get better? I mean, like, there is some relationship you have with these people, which is really important, Stephen. You meet these people and they trust you. And, you know, I mean, not everybody gets better 100%. So it's not for me to be the devil's advocate. It's for me to be curious.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
So something I wrote earlier today, because you've got a different audience to what I'm normally working with, because I'm usually working with doctors, hypnotherapists, even neurologists nowadays. So I wrote earlier, you will be free of chronic pain when you both consciously and unconsciously fully understand it is best for you.
Okay, you can hold it up. Hold it up for a minute.
Hold it up. Keep it up there. Yeah, no, it's right here. Okay. You will be free of chronic pain when you both consciously and unconsciously fully understand that it is best for you. Now, Stephen, please unpack that for our audience.
Okay, so if I give you I tell you what, I'll finish off the story first of how I got this, because it also explains it. But remind me if I don't answer that. I was looking after people and at parties and in the street and things, and so it's sort of random things of finding people, and I hate to see people in pain. So about 4 or 5 years after I started helping people out of anxiety, and I always used to do it in one session because my memory is very poor. So I'd have them for the day, not an hour, but for a day. And so it's about 6-7 years ago now, I read this thing and it said the neural pathway for physical and emotional pain are the same neural pathways.
Yes.
Now, that might not mean a lot to a lot of people, but it blew me away. Because everything I'd learned about helping people with anxiety, I could map across to physical pain. And everything I learned about physical pain, I could map across to anxiety. So it made me better at both things immediately. So within a week or so, I'd created the idea of Old Pain to Go. I'd created the name. I didn't want to call it Chronic Pain to Go, because a lot of people, when they talk about pain, they don't talk about it as chronic. And some people think chronic means bad pain. They're not seeing it as a time thing. So chronic pain is after 12 weeks of having it. So I called it Old Pain to Go, and I started. I tried. I
also want to interrupt you, which I do occasionally, and I apologize, but I must do this. It's very important for people to know that the body heals from pain, acute and chronic. The body has an incredible healing ability. When it doesn't, and there's something like what Rose taught me called medically unexplained symptoms, and think people don't get better, it's something else. Let's give it to the, like, people do get better lots of times, but there are conditions and symptoms that.
Yeah, well, that's why Stephen's little notice before is so relevant. So, keep going.
I've lost where I was.
Well, the woman with the crutches, you didn't even finish that story yet.
No. She got better and just wandered off with the crutches. But
did she put the crutches aside?
I didn't even know her name. I mean, I didn't ask it. I didn't give her a business card or anything. I just did it because that's what I do. Anyway, so, in fact, her daughter said, "Are you that bloke from Ruskington?" When I said I was going to help her, she said, "Are you that bloke from Ruskington?" I was like, "Oh, people have heard of me." Anyway, so I called it Old Pain to Go, and I tried to get my local doctors to let me have some of their clients in a surgery.
Good
And I said,
luck on that
I'll
one.
do it for free. I'll do it for free. And as typical in the UK, doctors don't want to know.
Or anywhere else.
Well, yeah, you've all got the same problem. So I did my own. So I just put a thing in the local shop saying pain clinic on Thursday, hour and a half, it's free, come along. And 9 people turned up. One was only assisting his wife, and she was on crutches. And I just had them for an hour and a half, and I talked to them and explained how it all works, which I'm going to explain in a moment to you. And 5 people left totally pain-free, and 4 left with some pain, but dramatically reduced. And the woman on crutches left without the crutches. And but a husband who wasn't even coming for his own pain, he was 76, and he'd had back pain since he was 19, and it was when he was playing rugby. And I worked out the story and dealt with his pain as well, even though he was sort of like, well, you can't help me. And every time I ran a clinic after that, I got a higher proportion of people that left pain-free. So within 6 weeks, I felt confident enough to teach it. So for 7 years, it's probably 7 years now, I've been teaching it, and it's been the biggest learning process because I have to tell people how it works. So I've had to go back to the basics. So here's the basics of it. We have 2 aspects of the mind, the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious that you're aware of, and the unconscious runs your heart, your lungs, and everything else, all your systems. And anything that you say in your head, the unconscious fetches for you. So if you think of having a chocolate biscuit, your legs take you to the cupboard. You don't have to think, I need to get out this chair. Which leg do I use? So your unconscious is really clever, and it can do hundreds of things at the same time. And it's a lot faster than the conscious. It's a lot cleverer than the unconscious. So forgive me today, because I'll slip between calling it the unconscious, the subconscious, and the thing I'd really like to call it, which is the epiconscious, meaning above consciousness. So,
wow.
Yeah. So
meaning above the
consciousness.
Yeah. So subconscious means under the command of the conscious.
Yes,
That's
but
why
it's
it
not.
fetches anything you think of. And epiconscious is, well, it's doing things that we're not even aware of. So it's above consciousness. It's not below consciousness.
Well, it's like driving the car, isn't it, Stephen?
Oh, yes.
You just hop in the car and you drive, and you don't even ask yourself, what you're doing. You just...
And it's not just the mechanics of letting the clutch out and changing gear.
I think the sub is just a location, like it's just under the conscious mind.
Yeah.
Like the mind is here. So it's just under, it's not sub. I think it's like a literal under the conscious mind.
Let me use the word subconscious, and then I'll stop using it. So it's under the command of the conscious, but its capacity is right. Let's go into capacity.
But what about the fact that it disobeys the conscious?
But just a minute, here we go. The conscious I can't answer all these things at once because I'm not remembering.
The reason I get very excited
the conscious you two are troublemakers. I knew you would be. The conscious mind only holds 8 bits of data. Now, to put that in relevance to you, if I read my phone number out 1 digit at once and said, please remember this, and you tried to, that would be the 8 digits used up. And anything I said after that, you wouldn't hear me properly and you won't understand it. Or you forget my number, and then you can hear me and understand me. So your conscious mind is filled up very quickly. So it's usually the unconscious is feeding it. And your unconscious is really clever. There's 100 trillion data connections, and they can all talk to each other. So the chance of making a connection is 100 trillion times 100 trillion, 100 trillion times, which is apparently more than there are atoms in the universe. So we've got this fabulous bit of kit called I'm going to call it now the unconscious, but it is under the command of your conscious mind. So if we think of anything, it fetches it. Now, we tend to think in pictures. So when we think of something we want or we don't want, we're thinking of the same thing. Whatever we think of, it fetches. So if I was to say now, I don't want a panic attack, it would fetch me a panic attack.
Yes.
And
can you stop for a minute?
Mhm.
Can you this I don't want. Can you talk about that? Because that's very important.
I'll show you this in action. I'll show you this in action.
Yeah.
So because what you're thinking about is the thing that happens. So I'll just give you an example first. Imagine that the viewers are with me in a room, and I say to you, the viewer, will you go to the shop for me in the break? And you say yes. And then I say, when you get there, don't get me a pint of milk. Now, you're going to be confused by that. And it's no different to when we say something negative in our head. The unconscious is confused by it because it wants to fetch it for you. But what do you want? Apart from not wanting a pint of milk. So because you agreed to go to the shop, you might actually say, I'm sorry, Stephen, I didn't get that. And I repeat it again. Go to the shop and don't get me a pint of milk, please. Now, you might be embarrassed, so you might just go to the shop. And you'll stand in the shop and you'll be going, I don't know what to do. And then the shopkeeper says, can I help you? And you say, yes, I'll have a pint of milk, please. And you think he must have wanted a pint of milk or else he wouldn't have mentioned it. And your brain works exactly like that. So anything you think of, even if you put a don't in front of it, or I mustn't, or I cannot, or I don't want this, it still fetches you the same thing. So, and we can't not think about a thing by not thinking about it. So there's a really good old example, which is don't think of a purple elephant, please. Please don't think of it. Now you've all thought of a purple elephant. And however much you think, oh, I mustn't think of the purple elephant, because I'm going to say it again, don't think of a purple elephant, you're still thinking of a purple elephant. But if I say to you, when I say purple elephant, I want you to think of a banana. So don't think of a purple elephant. Now you've thought about a banana. So it's very easy to program the unconscious, but most of the time, and it's thought to be that 80% of our thoughts are negative. 80% of the time, we're asking the unconscious not to give us something. And it's going, there are millions of things on the planet. Why are you asking me not to give you that particular thing? Why don't you just tell me what you do want? Yeah. So I'll give you a real world example here. I used to have panic attacks from claustrophobia. So I know exactly what they feel like, and it's the most horrendous feeling, like you're going to die. Your chest feels like your heart's going to jump out of it. So I'm going to put that into practice now. So I'm going to pretend something that isn't real, and I want you to watch me, watch my face and my reaction to it. So I'm going to pretend I've got an interview tomorrow, and that I'm terrible at interviews, and I always have panic attacks. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I've had 28 jobs. I love interviews. And I got most of the jobs that I went after. So so here we go. So I open the envelope and I go, oh, job interview tomorrow. Oh, it's that job I really want. That job oh, 10 o'clock tomorrow. Oh, my God. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get there and I'm going to go all red in the face and I'm going to have a panic attack. Look at that. That's me pretending. My body has now gone into this stress state. It's given me a panic attack. Now, so if I do that, oh, I don't want a panic attack tomorrow. Look what I'm doing. I'm going, see this? That's what I don't want tomorrow.
Yeah.
Might as well gone, I don't want that tomorrow. I want to be confident tomorrow. Because now what's going to happen is I'm going to get there and I'm going to prepare for it and everything else. And then I'm going to have a panic attack. Now, here's the interesting bit that we don't realize about sarcasm. If the unconscious doesn't understand negatives, it doesn't understand sarcasm. So when I get thrown out the interview without the job that I really wanted, because I've gone all red in the face and had a panic attack, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to go, thank you for that, just what I wanted. And my unconscious is now getting rewarded for giving me the whole thing. And I've taught it now to keep giving me panic attacks. Crazy, isn't it? And the only thing I needed to change was, tomorrow, I really want this job. I'm going to be the most confident I've ever been tomorrow. I'm going to nail that job. And look, nothing.
Or whatever happens, it'll be okay. It was meant to be.
You could, but I would rather take it the other extreme. And well, you see, this all depends whether when people talk about positive personalities and negative, people who are always looking on the dark side of things. And I always think, well, if you're looking on the dark side of things, you can say, well, I'm never disappointed. But also, you're never excited and you never enjoy it when you get it because you think it's going to be taken off you. You see, everything I do, I look forward to it happening. I look forward to getting the interview. I look forward to getting the job. I look forward to celebrating that. And then I look forward to everything else. And I'm never disappointed because even if I don't get it, well, I've enjoyed probably 3 times before I get the letter that goes, no, we didn't pick you. And now I can enjoy the next interview and the thing. So I'd rather set it up to be the hope in it, to have the hope that this is. Yeah. And like I said earlier, if I can pass that over to clients in some strange way, that because they believe me and trust me that their pain can go away, then I'm doing that for them, that they have the hope and the belief and everything that it'll go away. So,
and they're empowered as well.
Yeah.
But look, can we just go back to that premise that we're brought up in fear somehow? And remember, fear is one of the things that we need because we are the animals that are dependent on our caregiver for the longest period of time.
Okay. I'll weave that in, but because I keep elaborating what I'm saying, I've never got to the point where I brought it in the first place.
Oh, sorry, Stephen.
It's all right. It's all right. Because I do talk from the heart. So I'm never quite sure where I'm going with it until I get there. Yeah. And if I'm interrupted, I don't know where I was going anyway. So yes. So
and you've got 2 of us doing it to you.
It's fine. I love it. So once I knew more about pain, and once I found out, and I'll just go over this for you. I'm sure your viewers will, or most of your viewers will know it. But pain is made in the brain, not in the part of you that is damaged or feels like it's damaged, not where you receive it. So the part of you, imagine my knee's hurting now. What would have happened is I would have hurt my knee in some way, and the knee would have reported to the brain to say, bit of damage here. My brain then has to assess what level of pain to give me to get me to take the right action. Now, in everything in life, I see 3 types of pain. So there's acute pain. Acute pain, initially when you touch something hot or sharp, there's an immediate reaction to move away from the danger. So we'll come to fear in a minute, Rose. So you're moving away from
there
the
you
danger.
are. There's your fear.
So now, initially, there's an urgency to the pain. Now, when we talk about levels of pain, we talk about 0 to 10, 10 being the worst pain you've ever felt and 0 being the no pain at all. But when you're actually cutting yourself or burning yourself, that 10 is a sharper 10 than any 10 you can maintain in your life. It's just enormous, but it's for a split second.
It's acute,
and that's enough to get you to move your hand away. Now, it's not instant. There is a split second where your brain has to say, if I move my hand from this hot plate, I'm not going to pull it back and shove it in this machinery behind me that's going to wrench it off. So it has to do a quick calculation of enough pain and the right direction. And it does that. Then I think there's a pain review. And what happens is you look at what you think you've damaged. So if I've touched a hot plate now, I look at my hand. And if I've got a massive blister there, my brain will send me enough pain to make me to go to the hospital. If I've barely touched it and I haven't done any damage, the brain might say, you don't need any more pain, just shove it under the tap for a few minutes because it's hot. So there'll be a review of the pain and it will change the pain instantly. Pain always changes instantly. So it changes instantly.
Or if the person's like, I don't want to go to the hospital, I'm going to deal with this at home, the pain will change.
They can sort of turn it down a bit, but if it justifies the hospital, that's the level of pain they're going to give them. But remember that the brain is them. So this is pain designed by them, but at the level of the unconscious, to get them to act. So if it wasn't enough to get them to act, it wouldn't be the right pain. So even people that don't like going to the hospital, the pain is going to be at a level to get them to the hospital. Yeah, so it's designed perfectly for them. And it might be it has to double the pain what anybody else would have to get them to the hospital, but it will get them there. And some people will be so stubborn that they just...
I mean, if the injury is bad enough, it will... Is that what you mean?
Yeah. If the injury is bad enough, the pain will be bad enough to get you to do what you need to do for your survival.
Okay,
Yeah,
that I know. Okay.
I mean, if you chop your hand off at the wrist and it's pumping blood out, as much as you don't like the emergency services,
No,
you've
that's
got to go.
No, I understand. Yeah.
So it gives you that level of pain that makes you make the right decision of where to go and what help to get. So now when you've had treatment, you might have had a plaster put on it, off a broken arm, you might have put a elastoplast on a small cut on your finger. Now that you've done the right thing, that pain level will drop down a lot because it's been supported. And a lot of the pain that we have initially is with self-support. If you've broken a bone, all the muscles in that place tighten up to keep it from cutting you to shreds inside. It also, if it moved about, it would cut your vein or your artery. It could kill you. So broken bones are particularly painful because the brain works out the damage it could do if it's left unfettered. So when you get the plaster on, the pain goes right down. But it's still as broken as it was an hour ago. It's not mended at all. But now it's supported. Plus, you've also got the idea of safety because you've seen the doctor. And there's not any fear that you're going to do more damage now because you've had the plaster put on it and it's holding it for you. So unless you grab something and pull on it and pull it apart, it's protecting it all other ways. So you might have a bit of pain there to remind you it's still broken. But there's a logic of the fact that the pain needs to go away. And most people haven't worked this out. I've never heard it from anybody else. The pain has to go down because if it didn't go down, if the pain stayed the same level until it healed, how could it report that it's not healing? So imagine if your arm's twisted before they put the plaster on it and it's not meeting itself. So they put the plaster on, and if you stayed in pain anyway, that was the normal thing, it can't tell you it's never going to heal because it would be trying to give you a message over the top of a message that's already loud. So once I worked out about pain and how it worked and what it was doing, so there's the initial pain, there's the pain once you remove yourself from the danger, then there's the period of time where it heals. Now, most things actually heal in about 6 or 7 weeks. I think a broken arm's about 7 weeks. So with a bit of leeway, they call it 12 weeks, and then they decide to call it chronic pain after 12 weeks. Now, in my world, chronic pain shouldn't exist. Nobody should have chronic pain. It's a message now saying do something about it when there's nothing you can do about it. And so I had to think this through. And from my own experience of being free from it, it was like, well, how did that work? So I think it's as simple as this, that the brain, if it's telling you that there's, do something about it, there's another thing steps in, which is what I was told by the doctor, the pain will get worse until you die. And we all know that pain gradually increases over the years and the area that's hurting gets more widespread. And everybody talks about neural pathways getting bigger and that, but I don't think it's that. I think it's simply this message saying, do something about it. And when you don't, it said, I told you, do something about it. And it gets louder. And it spreads the area so you notice it more. That's all it is. It's a natural process. But we have to remember that pain is a protective measure. Your body will only give you pain if it thinks it's better to give you pain than not give you pain. So this is what we're doing. We're interfering with a message that thinks it's doing some good, but in effect isn't doing any good. Now, my idea was, I think it's ridiculous that we get painkillers that interfere with the message. So imagine my knee tells my brain I need a level 8 because I've shattered my kneecap. And if I put weight on it, it turns up to a 10. So I don't put weight on it. So imagine somebody comes along and gives me a shot of morphine and it goes down to a 4. Now, if I put that weight on that leg, the bones are going to come through and they're going to do enormous amount of damage. So my brain's going to say, I'm not going to switch it down. If you're going to give me something that interferes with a message, I'm going to turn it up to 15. So it's still an 8 when it arrives at the knee. So you still get the same protection from it. So this explains why drugs often don't work. It's not purely that you're getting used to them. It is that your brain is saying, I want them to have this level of pain. So,
yes. Again, for you to do something about your situation.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
But there's nothing you can do. So it's to me, it's not a necessary message anymore. It's a mistaken message. So my idea was, well, instead of doing something that interferes with the message, and as a hypnotherapist, I was taught to numb areas and things like that, which I won't do. Numbing is okay for temporary measures, such as emergency things or operations or having a tooth pulled or something, but it's not for life. You don't numb something for life. So I wanted to work out how to do this. And I wanted it to be that it didn't numb the area, so that if you got rid of the chronic pain, that area is now available for new pain to show itself up at a low level. You can now have a level 1 pain there and you'll know about it. Whereas if you're already in a level 8 pain, you won't know until it's a level 9. And if a tumor grew there, well, a level 9 tumor, before you notice it, is too late. So I thought of my first argument to actually get the brain to turn off pain. So initially when I did this, I had one argument for the brain, and I call it brain bargaining. So we have a brain that thinks it's looking after you. And it's my job, it's like a sales job in reverse. I have to convince your brain that it's not looking after you. It is in fact doing more harm than good. Now, because that part of the brain controls your heart and your lungs and everything else, it's survival. And if it knows it's harming you more than it's helping you, it has to turn it off. And to turn it off, it just stops sending it out. And just think of a pain message. A pain message is made and manufactured and sent out over and over and over again every bit of the day. And to stop pain is not hard from an example of what the body has to do. It just doesn't do something instead of doing something. But you have to make that connection that makes it feel safe again, and that it's more safe to switch the old pain off than to keep it. And that's why I wrote that thing. So we'll just pop that back on.
Put it up again, yes.
Yeah, that you'll be free of pain when your conscious and your unconscious understand it's better for you. So there's two things I do. I talk to people. I find out why, or the reason I think why it's holding on to the pain. And it's more than, it's sometimes not even damage, but it's more than just damage. It can be injustice. It can be self-hate. I've dealt with people who've been in a car accident and the friend was killed, but they were the driver, and they feel that they need to suffer because
their fault
died instead of them. And so they keep the pain. It can be thousands of different reasons. And I talk to people, and because I'm used to helping people out of anxiety where I have to find the reason, I'm very good at finding the reason. And here's a simple one for anybody who's a practitioner to access somebody's bit they don't know. It's as simple as this. When somebody comes to see me, I say, briefly, tell me the problem. Yeah. Now that doesn't sound much of anything. Briefly, tell me the problem. What happens here is everybody who comes to see you wants to tell you 2 hours worth of the trouble they've had and when it happened and all the details. And if they tell me that, I'll get lost in the detail and I'll miss the main point. The moment I say briefly, remember I said that the conscious doesn't hold much data. As soon as I say briefly, they have to condense 2 hours worth of what they wanted to tell me into a few short sentences. The conscious cannot do that, but the unconscious can. So what happens is they start talking without actually realizing where they're going with this, because the unconscious feeds them it. And I know this happens because they quite often say, I don't know why I'm telling you this. So they've got a feeling of what they need to say. They start telling it, but they're going, why am I telling him this? So this quite often gets to the core of the problem. You just have to put the pressure on for the unconscious to answer rather than the conscious. So I talk with them. And then if I find the problem and I find that they can remove it, all I have to do is make them aware that that's not keeping them safe. It's actually putting them in more harm than good. And when I do that, I then ask them, are you okay now to let go of that? Now you know the reasons. Are you okay to let go of that? And when I get a good firm yes, I can proceed. If I don't get a good firm yes, I cannot proceed. So if somebody says, I say, how would you like to be free of pain in the next few minutes? And somebody says, that'd be all right. It's not giving much of a message to the unconscious to release it from something it thought was keeping them safe. But if they say, yeah, I'm up for it now, I really want to go forward with this, I want to be pain-free, fabulous message, direct to the unconscious.
Then you're on the same team.
Yeah. And then I have to set up what's called an ideomotor response. And it's simply a way of your body moving without you consciously doing it. And so the easiest one is a stand-up lean from the ankles. You can do it with a head nod. There's lots of other things you can do. I prefer things that are about relaxation because people can't fake it. There's a thing done in hypnosis where you get the right finger, the finger on the right hand, little finger to raise for yes, and left hand is no. But if you do that, I could do that and it would look like it's an unconscious thing and it would feel like an unconscious thing and I wouldn't be sure. So when I'm working with somebody who's not familiar with this, I want them to absolutely know it wasn't them that did it. So the moment I get that yes set up, I can now ask a question. And all I'm saying to the unconscious really is, on the basis of what you now know, so what I've talked with them and what I've explained and the fact that they've said they'll release it, and I work with fibro, please ask me about that later. I add a bit in for fibro, which is I agree to listen to my body from now on. So they make an agreement, so they're pacifying the body that they're not going to ignore it anymore. And once I get that, I just ask the unconscious, are you willing to turn this old pain message off? And if they get a yes, I know they'll be out of pain.
Wow.
The next thing I do is not a question. This is almost like, will you go to the shop while you're there, get me a pint of milk? This is, will you turn it off? Because I want to know yes or no. So I usually get a yes to that. And I say, okay, now I want you to turn that old message off. And any other old message they haven't even told me about. So that also brings in the fact that sometimes people used to say, oh, my knee pain's gone, but I've forgotten about my ankle. So this brings it all together that all the pain can go, because now they recognize that it's not necessary pain. And their unconscious is recognizing it's not necessary pain. And also the fact that old pain in an area will disguise new pain arriving. And so it's for survival, it's absolutely adamant that get rid of the old pain. They can feel new pain. It's a lot safer that way. So, and that works. Now, there are times when people have the early traumas and things, and I'm sure you want to talk about that because I know a lot of your viewers will have had that.
Yeah.
So that's a matter of dealing with that as well as. And because I trained in that to help people with anxiety, it's a matter of finding the cause of that and dealing with the cause. And I don't do a lot of all these other things as well. I don't do the, tell me about when you're 21, tell me about when you're, all these other ages. We go straight back to the early days when this thing first started. We can find a point where they can't bring on this horrible anxiety feeling that they had. And I know that's earlier than when it happened. And then you bring them, in advance a year until they can get the anxiety feeling. So when we know how old they are, and then there's one of two things happen. They either recognize what happened to them, and then with a trained professional, you can sort out as an adult now what happened to you as a child. In about 1 in 4 cases that I dealt with, they couldn't see what happened to them, but they were going into the fear and the shock and the fight or flight. You could see it happening in front of you. And I would say, I want you to see what this is so you can tell me so I can help you. And they'd go, I can't see it, I can't see it. And I'd get them out of that state and bring them back to safety. And I'd say, okay, I want your unconscious to understand that I'm very good at helping people relieve the trauma, but I have to see what it is. If it's not willing to show you that, I appreciate it's doing what's best for you. It doesn't want to put you back in that mode and make you see what it was so you can't forget it. So, and I take that is a really good thing. So if it's not going to show you what it is so we can deal with it, I want it to throw that old program away. Take a choice now. Are you willing to show them it? No. Right, sit in the chair, we're going to throw the program away. And then I built a technique to throw the program away. And that worked very effectively. And you've built up neural pathways. So this is what TMS is really. The build-up of neural pathways. And neural pathways, when we first make them, when we first think of something or a new idea, we have a very fine connection between the neural pathways. If we then drop the idea, say we think of it in a sleep, wake up, and then go back to sleep, it withers away in 3 days. If we keep using it, it forms a stronger and stronger connection. And I call it a neural highway. So when I've dealt with anxiety, what's happened is in their brain, they've got all these neural connections, and then they've got some really strong ones, all to do with anxiety. And they're really well developed. And I think what happens then is, with anything new that comes along, if you had a highway near your house, you wouldn't use all the back roads to do a 50-mile journey. You'd nip on the highway till you got closer to it, and then you nip off. And I think with new things, it also goes down the anxiety highway. And that's why anxiety gets worse, because it starts bringing more things into it. So when we have the aha moment that we mentioned earlier, where the person recognizes what happened to them when they were younger, and there's 2 main elements I go for. One is, if you understand you weren't at fault, that's the biggie that changes you. And the second biggie is that you lose your self-worth when somebody harms you when you're younger. You blame yourself, not the abuser. And usually the abuser blames you. So you end up with those 2 things. You take the blame for it, and then you lose your self-worth, and then very difficult to recover. But I've found ways of helping people do that. So once you've dealt with it as an adult, it's almost like it hadn't happened. And the same happens with my pain work. I see people years later and I chat to them, and sometimes they forget they had pain and I worked on them. It's really, they're still out of pain. So some go a bit strange and they go, oh, Stephen, I'm still out of pain, but I still can't believe it. And others just go, hi, Stephen, and they can't even remember I helped them. But they're not in pain. And why would you want to remember pain? So this is my angle on it, is that if you can get it out of your unconscious, because it's not the right way around, it's not safe, and it's not helping you, it's trapping you in this. And I'll give a really good example here of what's happening when you're trapped in anxiety. Let me just tell you the fire alarm idea for pain. Pain is like a fire alarm. The only difference being there's different levels of pain, and with a fire alarm, it's 10 out of 10, full bore, full volume. So if you're in a building and the fire alarm goes off, it goes so loud, it nearly makes your ears bleed. Now, pain's just the same. It's meant to be annoying to get you to move. But the fire alarm only has one message: get out or you die. It's such a strong message, and it's so powerful that we have to be trained as kids to walk out and not take things with us and not end up a pile of bodies in the doorway from scrambling. Yeah. So there's also the same message about pain. Let's say we call the fire brigade. The fire brigade come out. We've all left the building. We're all safe now because we're away from the building. That's what pain is trying to do, make you go to the safe place. Now the fire brigade come, and they would be better off walking around the building shouting to each other without the fire alarm on, because then they could hear each other. but they leave the fire alarm on. Why? So that nobody goes back in and gets back in danger again. And it's the same when I work with a client. I'm not going to turn the pain off before they've been diagnosed, or they'll get the wrong diagnosis. Yeah? So when the fire brigade have finished, the fire chief will come towards you and say it's okay, and the fire bell will go off, not because they've chopped the wires, but because they've reset it. And this is an important thing, because most people ask, can you remove my anxiety? Can you remove my phobia? Can you remove? No, I cannot.
No, definitely not.
And like Rose will agree with me, in the UK, I could turn off somebody's fear of spiders and it would be a good idea. It wouldn't be a good idea in Australia. So I say to people, no,
or snakes.
Yeah, I'm going to reset your alarm so that it now takes into account a baseline of this is how I am. This is how you can work with people with arthritis or whatever, rather than, oh, well, you've got something, so you've got to keep the pain. You can say, I want your body to understand the base level now is this. You've got these joints that aren't quite right. There's a bit of weakness there, but that's the norm now. You don't need pain every day to remind you you've got arthritis. You can remember you've got arthritis and you don't need the pain. So the pain can go away on the basis that when it gets increased in any place, it now starts to show up again. But you wouldn't notice it increasing gradually. You wouldn't be able to go to the doctors with it. And if you've got a lot of pain somewhere and it increases, the doctor would probably say, oh, it's just got worse, without examining you even. So I'm in my own whirlwind, aren't I?
You're doing a great job.
Yeah, it's
So you're helping people reset.
Oh, right, yeah. So it's about reset. Now, there's a really good story that made me aware of this. I'd helped a woman. She was one of the few people I've needed more than one session with. But she was literally suicidal the first day she rang me. So I helped this woman on a few occasions, and she'd been abused as a child, beaten by her mother, and raped when she was 14. So she had a lot to get rid of. And she got abused one day by somebody who came to her house. And she ran off and came to see me. So when she came to see me, there's a technique I'm going to show you soon that I said about calming people down, which I'll give to everybody here. I did that with her, and it was the only thing that worked. So I got her in a calm state, and it took about 15 minutes of trying things before I thought of this one. And in fact, I invented it that day. So this is where it comes from. So I got her calm, and then here's what happened. She's got this level of anxiety that's very high. I mean, to be suicidal, you have to have depression and a level of anxiety that's quite a high level. So she got this level of anxiety, or PSA. Now, when this guy came to see her, it's somebody who visited the house on a regular basis. I think he was an uncle of her husband or something. And he would come round every few months, drop in, have a cup of tea, chat, go on his way, and that was it. And then come back a few months later. Nothing ever untoward. But this day, he kisses her goodbye, instead of just hugging her. He kisses her as well, puts his tongue in her mouth and gropes her. So you can imagine a woman who's traumatized anyway. This just brought everything back. So she comes to see me, and then when she's telling me about this, here's the thing she didn't notice at the time, but obviously were in there, but she didn't notice them. So she said, this was different. He came through the door, he brushed past me. That should have been enough for any woman to go, there's something wrong here. Her son was upstairs, she could have called him down and been safe. But she didn't notice it. He then sits down next to her instead of opposite her like he normally does. Then he tells her he's always found her attractive. He's never said that before. And there's about 10 things she reeled off that were all major clues that anybody would have picked up on, but not her, because they're all down here.
Yeah.
And it was only when it went past here and it got her that she stacked them all up and went, that's why it got to there. So it's very important that for all the people that haven't recovered yet, that you find out what's trapping this, why you've got a level of anxiety, and find somebody who can reset it for you, help you reset it.
You're talking about being mindful, being aware, being protective of yourself.
Yes.
If she would have been more aware or had more clarity and more like, I'm good, what do you think, Rose?
Well, this resetting, help me with this, because the resetting, making her aware that she didn't notice, would that have produced guilt in her that she didn't notice already, or did it produce forgiveness in her? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to really go back to the original cause and get rid of that blame.
That's
I did that several times. This is one of my, I wouldn't say it's a failure, because I helped her so often that I had to put myself under pressure to learn lots of new stuff to keep going back to try and help her, because I was dealing with anxiety, but I'd never dealt with depression before, and there's a subtle difference. And depression isn't fight or fright, it's play dead.
Yeah.
And literally play dead. So people who have depression, when something happens, they might rehearse in advance what they might do, same as people with anxiety do. But when it happens, they lose all sense of what's happening, because they're playing dead and they don't want to give away that they're alive. So there's they learn nothing from each incident that happens to them. It's a horrible.
Very well said.
It's a
very
horrible,
well said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with anxiety, it really, you can play around with the edges. You can. I spoke to a woman yesterday. I've known her for several years, and she came to this event. We've never really had long chats, and she's in the same sort of line of work. And we were talking about this, and she's been working on herself for 20 years and not really solved the problem. And I was chatting to her, and once she's never raised this with me before. And I just tried to give her a few bits of help while she was with me. And she's now said, oh, I'm coming for a session with you because I must have raised enough. Because in the end, there's people who keep, I think, I'm trying to think of the night. I think it was Covey who said, you saw wood to sort of make you feel better and investigate it. But in the end, you're sawing sawdust. And I think if you keep investigating something, then you really ought to get to the point where you say, I've done enough of this. I don't need to know absolutely everything of why I'm like this. Can't I just forgive myself and let go? Can't I just let this go? It's not helping me. It's harming me. Why don't I just say enough?
It's acceptance of your reality. It's like you're
Because
accepting your reality. You're integrating the past and the present and saying,
yeah. And so it is best if you find the cause and then deal with it. But second best is, look, I've spent too long on this, and I'm living my life in the past.
Right, like it's a little bit of Joe Dispenza work, which is high energy work and all really very neuroscience. And his is like, just, this is your reality. Okay, this is your reality. Accept it, or some of the work we've learned with, like, or integrate your past to your present and live in the present. Like that can also work. That's a choice.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying. Yeah.
I saw a young gentleman once for anxiety work, and he was 18, and he'd been abused until he was 2, and then adopted by a family, and his brother as well. And the guy that phoned up was his father, and very well-to-do, very well-spoken, and they had a lot of money and things, and they lived in a nice house. And the father and mother were going to go and live abroad. And the son wanted to stay in this country, but he was a nervous wreck, still from the abuse. And usually I find out the cause and everything, but I know the cause. And I know he won't have any conscious memory of it, because you don't normally have much before you're 5 anyway. So when he came, I said to him, okay, let's do straight talking. You had a terrible start in life. You were abused, you had cigarettes stubbed out on you, but that was 16 years ago. Then you won the lottery. You got these wonderful parents who are also quite affluent, so you've never had to struggle for money or anything. You've been raised well, you've gone to private school, you've had a whale of a life, and they absolutely adore you, and they chose you. You weren't forced on them. They chose you and your brother. They love you to death. So you can either go spend the rest of your life going, I had a poor start, and being a victim, or you could say, I won the lottery when I was 2. You choose your attitude now. That was it. That was the treatment.
Yeah. You choose your attitude.
Yeah, yes. You choose your attitude now. Live in that misery that you only briefly felt, and you probably don't even know, but you've been told about. You can live in that misery, or you can go, I won the lottery.
So with the few minutes we have left, can you do a short little, you
Oh,
know,
that
you're going to
technique.
do a little bit of healing.
Yeah, yeah.
We have a number of viewers. Maybe we can just all practice a little bit.
Yeah. Here's one for, we all have things called triggers, and a trigger can put you into that fight or flight mode quite quickly, or you might already be in that sort of level of it. It's best to catch things when they start, because within moments your chemicals change and your body posture changes and everything joins in together to put you into that state, whether it's anger, depression, fight or flight, whatever it is. So here's a very simple thing, and it's as simple as this. When you feel that change, instantly, it's triggering you off to say you're in danger. You look around and you say to yourself, am I in danger? The beauty of this is normally people say, well, start breathing differently. Well, if a bus is about to run you over, breathing differently is not going to help. So you hear the hooter and you go, am I in danger? Yes, I'll leap out the way. But most of the time it will be, am I in danger? And then you say, no. You say it very firmly, no.
Say it out loud, no.
Say it out loud, no. Well, if you're in a public place, you just internally, no. And then you'd say to yourself, I'm safe. And you say it very softly and firmly, I'm safe. So that you feel safe. It's not pretending I'm safe. It's I'm safe. I'm not in danger. I'm safe. Then you want the body to join in. The body shape for danger is you pull yourself in and protect all your innards. And I talked about depression and being eaten. Animals eat your innards first.
Oh, that's nice to know.
Well, here's why. Because it gives them available, already digested food, so they've got the energy to fight other predators off. And it's also the easiest bit of you to get at. Anyway,
You just woke me up.
That's the intention. So you close in on yourself when you get frightened. But a lot of us have spent most of a lifetime in anxiety or fear. You know, I had claustrophobia and several other things, and my shoulders were coming forward. And the young guy told me how to do this because he noticed my shoulders were in the wrong place. So I'll tell you this, and then I'll go back over the whole thing so you've got it all together. What I want you to do now, all of you, I want you to bring your shoulders forward as far as you can. Bring them up as far as you can. Try and brush your ears with them as you put them as far back as you can.
You're doing Pilates.
And drop them down.
You're doing Pilates.
Oh, good. So drop them down. Now, that's the natural place for your shoulders. Now, for you women out there, at some time, if you've been bothered by guys, you will have got a bit round shoulders because it doesn't show your bust off as much when you close in. So do be careful now. That if
kind of creates
you might get a bit more.
We're taught to be humble.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit, but you can pull your shoulders back and still be humble. That's okay. The message.
So now you've got this, and it's quite a proud, it's an upright stance that goes, I'm fine. And you're not just saying I'm not in any danger. You go, I'm safe, because, well, anybody could attack you, and you can't be in a safe posture while you're under attack. So let's go through the whole thing together then. You feel this thing coming on. You immediately look round. Am I in danger? In your head, you say no. Then you say, I'm safe. You then move your shoulders. You change it round. Now, what you've got is the brain has said trigger, fight or flight or anger or whatever. And you've now said, no, I'm not in danger. I'm safe. And then the body said, I'm safe. And
Can I just interrupt for a minute?
Yeah,
I love what you just said.
Sorry, Rose. Sorry,
when you're doing training in CPR.
Yeah.
Yes. You know.
Yeah.
The first thing you do is you've got a person who's collapsed in front of you, or they're bleeding or whatever. The first thing you do is you check for safety. So you don't run to fix the person. you check for safety. And what you're actually saying is that that's what you do. You check yourself out. Am I safe? I've got this pain, but am I safe?
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same thing. And so many people learn CPR who are in chronic pain. And I just think it's a very good model to recognize that, yes, first of all, you don't go to breathing, but you'd go to breathing afterwards when you're doing the CPR.
Oh, yeah, you can do anything then. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Stephen. That's, I don't know if it resonates with other people, but it's sort of, from a health perspective, it resonated with me, what you're saying. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Would you like one more technique as a bonus?
Yes, why not? Go ahead.
Have we got time? Okay, it's only a few minutes. There are many eye accessing clue techniques, EMDR and various other things. And I created one called Auto REM, because everything I do with clients, I get them to do the work. I get them to understand it's them altering their own body. I'm not doing anything.
Beautiful.
I'm just a guide for it.
Beautiful. You're the messenger.
And also that they're responsible for everything, and they can make the changes. Not anybody else. They can make the changes, but only if they think they can. If they think they can't, they're true. It's true.
They
Anyway,
won't. Yeah.
So here's something I created that people can use on themselves, and I'm not going to explain why it works and all that to this audience. But when every night you go to bed, your eyes do REM sleep. And REM sleep is thought to be putting the emotions away from the day. So you have deep restful sleep where the body repairs itself. And then you do let's get rid of the emotions, and the eyes dart about. Now, there's a relationship between where you look and where you're accessing the brain. So if I look up over there, I'm accessing this part of the brain. And if I look down there, I'm accessing this part of the brain. Now, it's not strictly true, but it's near enough. And it's helpful for the body to know that. So when you do this eye-exing thing at night, when you're doing REM sleep, they dart about all over the place. And you're having a very rapid dream where you take lots of things that you've seen and you put them together as a story, but you're putting them away in different places. So you might have walked past somebody whose perfume smells like your auntie's used to. And you'll have a dream with your auntie in it, but she'll be wearing a canoe and standing in a lift. And they'll all have some relevance to that day, but it seems ridiculous when you just tell somebody it. Yeah. But it will be putting it away, but the eyes will be in a different place for auntie, for lift, and for canoe. Yeah. Now, your brain knows how to do that. So I want you to think of something that bothers you where you can't do anything about it. This might be a loved one, or somebody's hurt, or somebody's going through something and you're concerned about them, but you want to be able to help them, and you don't want to get upset when you try and talk to them or help them. So think of something like that. Give it a number out of 10. I want you to close your eyes now and sit back in your chair. Just relax completely. Think of that situation, but I want you to give permission to your eyes now to do REM movement. Just allow them to move about. Now, they will do it, and it might not even feel like they're moving. But if you think they're not moving, just move them side to side a couple of times and then let this take over. So this is just going to take a couple of minutes. Now, as your eyes move about, it's moving from the logic side of the brain to the creative side of the brain. And it's moving backwards forward, or the emotional versus the logic, emotional, logic, and so on. And it's bound to cross over because they keep moving about. And what it's starting to do is put things into balance. So if this thing was highly emotional for you, then what's happening is there's a bit more logic coming in, and a bit more logic with the balance of it. And in a moment or two, your eyes will open automatically when it's completed it. And I think you'll find that thing's gone down a massive score. Yeah, it should at least half it. It's just a very natural way of allowing your body to do what it does well, putting emotions away. But it's this balance between left and right, and there are
and integrating them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Hopefully that will
help you. So interesting, and really, I'm really impressed with your knowledge of the brain and neurology and I mean, really, and you've brought the language down to the layman, which is very important.
absolutely.
Important.
Yeah. Even when I train, I don't mention which bit of the brain is doing what. I was once asked the question. Somebody from the group shouted out, "What bit of the brain is that?" And I knew, so I said, "Oh, it's the amygdala." And they started a 10-minute argument while people in the audience argued whether it was or it wasn't. It turned out I was right. But this was the person that asked the question, so they already knew the answer. But they knew it wrong.
There's always one person in that group. There's always one person in the classroom. I think it was me.
I think if we use technical language, we lose people. Because the moment somebody hears a word they don't understand, they can't comprehend the sentence.
Well, that's their defense mechanism, right, Rose?
Yeah.
Anyway, what's so interesting, and I'm so sorry for my draggy eyes. It's just a long day, and but it really, I there's a lot of people watching, and if anyone has questions, they can find Stephen Blake on Facebook. They can find information through Rose and I about Steve. This will be on YouTube tomorrow at some point with the description. And Steve, anything else you want to leave with our listening, our audience?
Yeah, because I've done an overview of everything, if you want to invite me back sometime for specifics, because I've helped a lot of people out of fibromyalgia.
Yeah, I'd like you to come on with a couple of fibromyalgia patients. I'm really a little bit blown away by that.
You provide them.
It's a really difficult condition.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, we will then. Because I think we can have 8 people, I think, Tova, on
4.
Yeah. Usually I need a longer time with them. So doing multiple people with fibromyalgia is probably not a good idea, but we could have people joining in with it who are listening to it.
Okay, so how many? Yeah. What, 2 people, 3 people?
Well, I just do with one, because then I can get to the nitty-gritty of that person's story.
Right. So one person.
But I would suggest that if anybody's got fibro, there's a page on my website, which is oldpaintogo.com. And if you look at the tags, there's one about fibro. And I explain a theory of mine of why you get it.
Wow.
And if you understand that, you can also understand how you can get free of it as well.
Wonderful.
There's a simplicity to it that you'll read it. And some people have actually read that and got better from reading it.
Wow.
I had one only a few months ago who said, I read your page 4 years ago. I got better. I didn't even know about it. Didn't know about it. So
don't you agree, Rhodes, that no matter how, we have such amazing people on our show and such amazing interest and the methods and the inspiration is that you will heal, you can heal. Absolutely. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but healing is possible. Your body is an incredible machine, and your brain is, and your unconscious. You explained it very beautifully. Rose, you want to say a few words and before we say goodnight?
I want to say thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much. It's just been lovely to have you interact with us and hopefully interact with the people that are going to be watching. Because it's important for people to know that they don't have to shut everything down.
No, you can get your life back. You can get your life back. You've just got to get your conscious and your unconscious to both understand.
In tune.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay, so good night, Tova.
Sleep well. Have a wonderful
good night, Stephen.
Thank you very much.
Great day.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.